Well, there were some guys on horses because they were the jousters. Jousters? Is that the right word?
Sure.
Joisters? Jousters?
No, it's not joisters. I know it's not joisters.
Pew pew! Alright, welcome back to Around the World in 80!
Yay.
As tradition goes, yay! But we had a pretty good week this week. I think it was pretty awesome. But this week we watched Sword in the Stone. This was Jared's favorite movie growing up, apparently. Is that correct?
I don't know about favorite movie, but it was one of my favorite Disney movies.
There you go.
As far as Disney goes.
So why was it one of your favorite Disney movies growing up? What was it about that you liked?
I don't know. Just like the story about King Arthur and kind of like who he was before he was king and all that stuff, I guess.
It's kind of like...
Would you chill out?
You know, everybody these days is doing like the backstory behind, you know, superheroes, like Once Upon a Time or Gotham. And so I feel like this was like out of its era, kind of, so to speak, because it was like King Arthur before he became King Arthur. And so I was like, wow, this would be like really popular today if people actually like watched it. A lot of the stuff that they talk about in the history of the Sword in the Stone actually talks about kind of like this back and forth between a movie called Chanticleer and the Sword in the Stone.
Chanticleer?
Chanticleer? Is that how you pronounce it? They were both being developed side by side, and Disney was basically kind of going back and forth between the two. Ended up doing that, but one of the things that Walt was saying was that it was a little bit too thin of a narrative, and that was kind of how I felt when watching it. I was kind of like, this is a weird story. I don't think I connected with it like
Sword
he did.
in the Stone, you mean?
Yeah, because it was not what I was expecting at all. I was expecting it to be like after he was made king, like how he grew up. That was what I was expecting. So it was a little bit weird for me.
Had you not seen it before?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Nope. My first time. It said as far as the reception in the box office, it was a financial success, becoming the 6th highest grossing film of 1963, earning an estimated $4.75 million. And then some of the critical reaction, demonstrates anew the magic of Disney animators and imagination and character creation. Some people said it was a little bit thin of a narrative, kind of like I felt. But Rotten Tomatoes reported that 71% of critics gave the film positive reviews. So I think it's a good Rotten Tomatoes rating. So yeah, if you haven't seen Sword in the Stone, I mean, it's not that I didn't like it, it just wasn't what I was expecting, and I still enjoyed it as a movie. But it felt a little abrupt at the end because I expected the end to be the beginning. So this week for our activity, we went to the Scarborough Fair.
Renaissance Festival.
Yes. So the Scarborough Fair, the Renaissance Fair, is basically a bunch of people dressing up in, medieval costumes, and, there's a bunch of different vendors that have created a village, and the idea, I guess, is that it's a village where King Henry VIII is visiting with his lovely queen, and they're like celebrating in the village. And so, a bunch of shops are there, a bunch of people are there, people have traveled there from all over the world, and that's kind of the feel that they're going for. And if you're a family getting ready to go for this, a couple things that I would do to prepare is there are not sidewalks, so it's mostly gravel and rocks on the pathways and grass. So you're going to want to bring a stroller that's able to deal with that terrain. And I definitely suggest the stroller over the baby carrier this time, because you can spend hours and hours inside of these places. And just for me personally, carrying her around in like an ergo baby would be a lot of stress on my back, and I would probably be a lot more unhappy with it. She would be a lot more unhappy with it than just in the stroller. And she was able to like take a nap in the stroller and things like that. So we ended up bringing our Bob, and it was great because we were able to like put all of our stuff in the bottom of it, not have to like carry it on our backs and just roll her around. And it was really, really simple. We also, because it was cold, we wanted to make sure we had plenty of blankets for her, and Jared ended up wearing his hiking boots just to keep moisture out. I just had my Converse on, but I was good with my Converse. And then make sure, like, a lot of the vendors themselves, they take cards, but the booths, the food booths that are put on by the festival itself only take cash. So make sure that you have plenty of cash for your entire family. I think the turkey legs were like $11. The sausages on a stick were like $6. So those are kind of the
French fries, I had $2.
Yeah, so those are kind of the price ranges that you're gonna look at.
Pretzels were $3.50.
Definitely bring cash to be able to do those things. And then I highly suggest that you guys buy your tickets online first, because they allow you to add the tickets to your Apple Wallet. So if you have an iPhone, I was able to just pull up my wallet and it had my tickets right there, and the guy was able to scan them right from my phone. So I wasn't freaking out like, oh my gosh, did I forget the tickets, you know, when we were driving, because that's typical of me. I was just like, yeah, they're on my phone. I have my phone.
Yeah, also, the enormity of the parking lot when we got there was shocking, which leads me to believe that there are days when there's a lot of people there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're buying your tickets at the window, that line's going to be really long.
Yeah.
So especially as it warms up,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be standing in line like you would at an amusement park, and it's going to be hot and it's going to be miserable.
Yeah.
While everyone else that had their tickets beforehand just walks right in, and you can go to do whatever you want.
Yeah, and the tickets are good for any of the weekends that the festival goes. Some people buy 2-day tickets because they make a whole weekend out of it, and there are different themes to the different weekends. So this weekend that we went was supposed to be like time travelers weekend, so there was a bunch of people there that were in steampunk outfits and things like that. And I know like next weekend's like a vendor weekend, so
Artisan weekend.
yeah. So, you know, if you're trying to plan which weekend you want to go, definitely go to the website and figure out like what the theme is for that weekend, and then maybe that will help you guys choose when you want to go. Now, this is a Renaissance festival that's happened in Dallas for decades. One of the shop owners that we were talking to today said she bought her shop 10 years ago, and it's been going on even longer than that. I don't exactly remember when it started, but it was so much fun.
Despite being freezing cold.
Yeah.
Literally 32 degrees.
Okay, so we're in the car. And we're all bundled up because apparently spring has not decided to stay. And the one day that we can go do this, where we're going to be outside all day, is going to be cold.
All day.
All day. But I'm super excited because we are going to the Renaissance Festival, which is something that I've never done before. Apparently it's time travelers weekend, like that's the theme. So I wore my TARDIS, but you can't see it because of the freaking many layers I have on. But I'm suspecting that at least we're gonna see some very interesting steampunk costumes. And in, like, as we're going, like, as we're driving down, it's, like, drizzling. And so I actually had Jared, like, stop the car, and I was like, are we seriously, like, okay with this where it's cold and it's drizzling and there's wind? Like, are we really going to be okay with walking around outside? And are we actually going to enjoy ourselves? And we, like, you know, looked at the weather. Jared pulled up his magical aviation weather. And we made the decision that yes, it was going to be cold, but it was going to stop drizzling, which it did. And the wind wasn't that bad, especially when you're going into the shops and it's like breaking the wind. Prepare thyself for merriment is what that sign says, but it's kind of raining.
It's drizzling.
Clearly the weather hasn't deterred other people. There's plenty of cars here. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how ridiculous are we?
Right now, considering I didn't bring a jacket,
8. To be fair, this is the only weekend that we were going to be able to come to this. So Yes, we would have liked better weather, and we would reschedule if we could, but we're making the best of the situation right now. It's a little tower castle. So what did you think as we pulled up?
Well, first thoughts pulling in, the entrance was a little run down a little bit. It's been there for a while. It's obvious it hasn't been repaired or restored in a long time. So at first I was like, oh, this was a mistake. But then once we actually got in, it's not that there was a lot of grandeur in like the shops and stuff. I mean, the stuff looked like it's been there for a while. A lot of it was kind of a little bit of a disrepair. But the thing that makes it feel fun and kind of like you did go back to the medieval times is that the people that are there, a lot of the people that are there, I mean, go all out when they're wearing their costumes and stuff.
Yeah,
and it was
we dressed normal, and we were the weirdos. But you know, we got there and we were basically, I enjoyed this aspect of it because we basically just wanted to explore and just kind of like see what we discovered. And so we basically walked in. I took a picture of the map just so that we could reference it later, but we basically were like, do we want to go right or do we want to go left? And so Jared was like, let's go right. So we went.
Because you can't go wrong with right. These are awesome. Say picky ponies. Train a cat. You want to go watch?
The thing that's like struck me first the most was the fact that you do have like the barkers. So they're the people that stand out in front of the store and they're like trying to get you to come into their store and like shop. And so, you know, you have people like yelling about like food or about, you know, clothing items or whatever. And as somebody, you know, like when we were in the Philippines and we had people like that, like I was uncomfortable. And so I had to like get over that really, really quick. And when I realized that like that's just a part of the experience and it's a part of the, you know, time period back then, and they're not like, you know, really super in your face like they used to be in the Philippines, then I was like, cool, it's just a part of the experience, and I wasn't as intimidated anymore. But yeah, the people really are making it what it is. Like there's some people that like are full in character.
There's most of the people that were there in costume also spoke in some form of English accent or Northern European accent, whether it was Scottish or English or Irish or like everybody spoke in an accent. And you're like, I know we didn't import a bunch of people from the UK over here just for a few weekends.
Like some people like even talk to
Austin,
some of these people like they like talk to us in French or talk to us in Spanish because they were like from Spain or from France, and that was really interesting. And we were standing in a shop and the parade came by, and I guess the parade is like where like shop owners or participants and volunteers can like get together.
Friends of the fair.
Yeah, and they like they march in factions. So like the Scottish one went past, and then the English one, and then all the gypsies. Yeah. So like you kind of saw like who was representing like what part of the country, and you know obviously all the Scottish people had kilts on, and like bagpipes, and then all the the ones that were representing Spain. They had a guy in a boat going past like Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, he was a guy wearing a little cardboard box that
looked like a ship.
He had made it to look like one of the 3 ships that they sailed over to the New World with Christopher Columbus, and so he was walking around with this about 4-foot long boat wrapped around his torso.
Randy! I'm not sure I can explain anything for about the next 10 minutes, but after that I'll be fine.
Marching one by one!
3 years ago, we and they'd wait till they got down to about the stage before everybody would start their stuff up again. And they'd be quiet as they came up.
There's the shot! Don't be afraid, you can wave. We need to be cool.
Cold to be good. Hello.
See you guys later. I didn't come back. And the big parade!
There was a lot of people there that had shops that were like jewelry shops or clothing shops. You could buy like costumes there. So like if you don't have a costume and you want to buy a costume, like you could definitely go there and then come back the next day like in full period outfit. You could buy everything you need, from hats to shoes to belts to swords. And it is fun to like see other people's outfits. Like some people were really, really creative.
The guy with the black fairy wings that called himself a dragon was pretty entertaining.
It's so funny. He had like a gray suit on that had like scales, and then instead of just like what you would think about dragon wings, he
bought a pair of black butterfly / fairy wings.
That's one thing though that makes the Scarborough Fair like really fun, is because people are really in character. They like interact with you just even if they're not a shop owner or not an entertainer. Like we had several people like joking like, oh my gosh, your child is so intelligent, she's getting you to do all the work. They're just very creative and very witty, and I appreciated that a lot.
Yeah, there was a guy at lunch. He didn't sit down at our table, but we could overhear him talking, and he just sat down with random strangers that he didn't know and started regaling them with the story of his characters' travel across
the pond.
Britain. He had this whole story made up. The other thing that was interesting with him is he would like stop mid-sentence and see someone he knew walking by and just like yell at the top of his lungs, and they'd come over and he'd like share food with them and stuff, and then they would share their food, and then they'd tell stories, and then they'd walk off and he'd go back to telling a story, and he'd yell at some other person.
Yeah.
And if you weren't ready for it,
it could be
he
a
would
little
just be
startling.
talking to you, and then he was like, "Hey, you over there!" And you, oh my gosh, just like that.
But we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, like just perusing the shops. Like I said, there's a lot of clothing, a lot of jewelry stores, but there's the occasional one. Like we went to the glass blowing shop, which on this cold day was where everybody was hanging out, so we didn't stay for very long.
They had 3 different kilns going.
Yeah.
It's the only warm spot.
I know. They have a lot of food in the parks, and then they do have a lot of gluten-free food options. They have a whole page on their website with all the gluten-free food options. So if you need that, or vegan, I think is another one that they one of the other like food considerations they had on there. You can definitely do it. And the guy that prepared my food, like, I didn't even say the words gluten-free. I just said I'd need it without the corn tortilla because that's what it said on the website. And the guy recognized that, oh, she has to eat gluten-free. And so he, like, changed gloves and everything and made sure that it was a semi-clean working space for
as clean as you can
as
for
clean as
an
you can
outside
for,
food vendor.
Okay, it's lunchtime. Jared's got his turkey leg. I've got sausage that we're sharing, and then I got fajitas, although they didn't have a corn tortilla. Are you talking? One of the highlights for us was the blacksmith shop. We were just about to leave, and we had wanted to see the blacksmith like demonstrations, but I guess for some reason the like official demonstration place was closed today, or something.
Or we couldn't find it. Whatever.
Find it. So we found a blacksmith shop. And
the smaller ones.
It was like the stuff that they made was gorgeous, and so we just started talking to him about it because we obviously appreciate that type of stuff. And he was like, "Well, you've inspired me," and he just like grabbed some like rust off the ground and like started making something.
Yeah, he grabbed a piece of metal rebar that had fallen on the ground that was probably going to get thrown away, and ended up making a little metal calla lily that he gave to us. Just gave to us.
Yeah.
It took about 10 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
But
it was so cool.
Hammered it out
and
handed it to Matt. He's like, "Here you go." It was cooled off. It was oil quenched. Everything.
Yeah. And they do have an Etsy store online too, so we will definitely have that link. Yeah. And then the other highlight I think for us, as far as the stores went, was the longbow shop. As you know, last week we did Robin Hood and we went and did archery. And Jared and I had been talking about, like, if we're really serious about doing this on a regular basis, like, I could either rent a bow for, every single time.
$20.
Or we could just buy me a bow. We went to this longbow shop and they were gorgeous. Like, they really did an amazing job on all of these bows. And so we decided that because I had enjoyed the longbow so much that I rented, that I would just go ahead and get a longbow from them. Really,
they were cheap too.
They were relatively cheap.
They weren't even expensive.
And
as far as bows go,
they have this really cool program too, where if you get better at what you do and you want to have like a longer bow or a higher poundage or whatever, they let you trade it in.
And then as long as it's in good condition, they trade it back for the price you paid for it.
Yeah.
Which, that's amazing.
That is amazing.
And they give you a 1-year warranty.
I think both of us are excited about this one after our recent adventure.
And Dim's good eating, boys.
Are you laughing?
We apparently have watched Swamp People once too many times in front of him.
Well, I'm actually really seriously considering a bow.
Do you want to just casual target shooting? Do you want to go after teenagers, dinner?
Well, he has his compound bow that he actually uses for hunting.
Yeah, we've got a dinner bow already.
I don't necessarily need a dinner bow.
I should feel bad. That's my wife and the mother of my child. You're the one that stole the wife. You're just keeping it warm, right? That's my excuse. I'm gonna go across the street to the kettle corn place and see if I can keep the kettle corn thing warm. Probably won't think I've sold enough to keep it running all day.
And sometimes a glove works better than a wrap. And I have the gloves that are $10. The wraps are $10.
We're talking alternatives to the grip. Okay. She's saying that the gloves are the same price as the grips. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm shaking because I'm so cold. Yeah.
Yes.
And so it goes right across there. And it transfers from bow to bow to bow, whereas a wrap is stuck on a bow once you glue it on.
So yeah, we were blown away by their craftsmanship and just by their customer service was phenomenal. Like, they totally indulged me when I was being, girly and said that I didn't want one color string and I wanted a different color string. Even though it took her like 10 minutes to string it up for me.
So cold.
Because it was so cold. So yeah, it was so much fun. The people there are so nice. And a lot of fun. And if you are looking for something just like different that you can do with your family, there's tons of like kids rides, and there's like a petting zoo. You can like pet a unicorn. And you can also
pony.
Meet a mermaid, although it was too cold for that today. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. I know we certainly enjoyed going to the fair. And I think we both were like, we should come back next year. It was definitely that kind of feeling when we left. And maybe we'll actually do costumes.
Hey, if I get to dress up like an archer, as long as I don't have to wear tights.
I will not make you do Robin Hood in tights.
I'll do Robin Hood. I'm just not doing Robin Hood Men in Tights.
No, we'll do a very, very cool Robin Hood. How about that?
Sure.
Okay. Until next time, we will see you guys later.